Wargaming is planning to release the Kampfpanzer 07P, a German tier 10 heavy tank that looks like the Leopard 1 and the Chieftain were combined into one tank, and will roughly cost around $300 if you were to outright buy it. The tank has so many things going for it: decent turret and hull armor, a snappy gun that is capable of hitting multiple cupola shots in quick succession, and reliable enough to aim for even the smallest of weak spots, high alpha and penetration HE shells, along with decent mobility and view range. We've seen the combination of these characteristics create the game's still unnerved broken Goliath, the Chieftain. Is this tank the biggest pay-to-win tier 10 heavy Wargaming has ever sold? Is it just going to be a mirage that will leave you disappointed after spending your hard-earned resources? Let's find out. First of all, I have to point out that I played most of these games during the recent Marathon Madness, and well, you probably know just how crazy the games get, and just like the Chieftain, I can also tell you that people love focusing this tank. So this factor does take a huge portion of the fun away. This battle was one of the first games I played on the tank, we quickly rushing to take this early game position from where you're guaranteed to do some nice early game damage. I quickly understood that the gun is absolutely awesome. The fast firing 410 alpha damage APCR shells reliably hit their mark and deliver you with an experience that mirrors that of the Super Conqueror. Sometimes. As more and more guys get spotted over on that ridge line, we put shot after shot into them, and the DPM seems to be pretty good as well. Which is very important, since the faster you reload, the more double tracks you can cause, and we all know that double track mean heck of a lot of damage. We tracked this poor TNH in place, but by the time I was gonna place my third shot into him, he repairs and he gets away. And I also noticed on the top of the map on A6 that the enemies are pushing, and I'm gonna have the word there just after finishing the little Skoda over here. The mobility of this tank is very interesting. It's very mobile for a heavy tank, although I didn't notice a huge difference between playing with and without turbo. I would say the only difference is the extra reverse speed. As our ally Centurion just turns his back towards them, he stands absolutely no chance of getting away, and we will soon have to be prepared for our next challenge. Can this tank withstand the onslaught of YOLOing tanks in a hull down position? I didn't quite understand what the 54 lightweight was trying to do here. I guess he got a little confused on what this KPZ thing was all about, and shortly afterwards, as the enemy Super Conqueror embarked on the great adventure of pushing me, it was time to find out whether this tank could meet him on even terms. As we pick him up and the Cobra unloads his magazine, I am left with a very hard decision to make. Do I chase after them in the open field and get farmed by the Su-130 while doing it? Or do I try to enter the city, which never ends well for any kind of tank in the attacking team due to the numerous amounts of hideous angles? I chose the latter one and soon found myself in a very delicate situation, with nothing much left but a dying team and many corners from which the enemies could all pick me for practically free. I couldn't really push into any of them without getting myself into a crossfire, so I decided to stay as long as I could, although in hindsight this was probably a bad decision. We did almost 7,000 damage in just over 5 minutes, but our team did not want to claim this victory, and I soon went under to the emerging amounts of enemy tanks surrounding me. Bad luck. This one was pretty crazy. In this next game we are playing the ever awesome Ghost Town, and we push to the rubble position where we can have some very nice cupola shots onto the enemy tanks. As the 279 arrives, I know this is going to be a very fun match. And we'll soon have our first chance at this cupola. The turret of this tank is pretty good, but heat shells can penetrate the cheek, so in case you decide to get this tank after watching this video, please check out the armor model that can be found at tanks.gg to see all the weak spots for yourself. A nice trick you can employ, and what you can also see me do here, is to instantly turn your turret sideways after firing. This will make the enemies bounce a lot more, since if they aim at the side of the turret, they will instead hit the mantlet, which is definitely gonna bounce their shots. And soon our arch nemesis of this battle is gonna arrive. And no, I am not talking about the enemy mouse, but rather our allied E3, who for some reason just dictatorically claimed this position as his own and basically almost pushed me out of it. As the 57 Heavy comes around and starts clipping our ally, we get a chance to put a juicy one into his turret and take another hit to our viewport, dealing no damage. We already have 2k damage ourselves, death and block, so this is starting out as a real nice battle. Total tanks like the Type or even 100 can easily overmatch your turrets, so you need to be very careful when peeking them. I see that this 57 Heavy can be picked up quite easily, while our Kampfpanzer thought otherwise, and I take a shot for no reason. After quickly checking where the Type was looking, I discovered there's an opportunity to peek him, for if we can pick him up, we can push further towards the enemies unopposed. The enemies were quick to react and they fell back, leaving us with nothing but a couple of unlucky cupola sniping attempts. And you get to see the juicy gun once again in action. At this point, looking at the minimap, I realized that we're about to walk into a full-blown crossfire setup by the camping TDs. The best course of action in these cases is to just fall back and wait patiently until a hero, in this case our fellow CC, Tzigan in his KPZ opens up the A-line by driving there and dislodges some of the camping enemy units. And once again, the gun proves that it is one of the better tier 10 heavy guns in the game, and you're able to consistently hit those cupola shots, and those APCR shells are also quite fast, which makes sniping at long ranges a lot easier. As we pick up the Foch B, the Foch 155 is guaranteed to YOLO our friend Tzigan, and we prepare to help him out by giving him a shot. Now the only thing left for us to do is just push in and clean up the remainder of the enemies, starting with the FV, and then giving the gorilla a juicy tracking shot. 8,000 combined, not bad, but let's see how the main strength on this tank holds up against multiple opponents at once, and that is being held up. We teleport over to the hill of Malinovka, and we already have a clueless super conqueror in front of us who is about to have a very bad day. You really need to be careful of not tunnel visioning and paying attention to your surroundings at all times when turning your turret, or else they're gonna make Swiss cheese out of it like the 60DP just did to me. I noticed you can go and focus a bit on the enemy tanks on the bottom, and you get to see that the 320 penetration heat can troll quite a bit, for example bouncing off an E-Honda's turret who you are shooting at from above. Luckily the T-54 pays us nicely for our efforts and gives us a chance for some nice damage to be picked up. Oh yeah, and already hurts quite a bit in this tank. As the enemy T-95 pops up, we head over to him to get some nice cupola shots, but how easy is it going to be panning him? As he keeps approaching us, all we have to do is just keep backing off at the same time. His cupolas will always be above the horizon and be completely visible, while his gun will stay hidden. Not bad, now let's give that 60DP also some love. And as the Object 140 picks him up, we head over to the enemy base in hopes of getting some late game damage, as this game is pretty much over already. Now let's try out those HE shells. Unfortunately, this game ended far too quick, but I promise you this next one on Himmelsdorf will be absolutely crazy, so keep watching. We start off by coming to the hill and side-scraping at the middle next to the rubble, but how brave are the enemies gonna be? Luckily, they just keep picking and allow us to rack up some very nice early game damage. Super lucky for us that our VKB just decides to tank the entire clip of the enemy TVP, allowing us to farm him in return and eventually win the hill. Now these guys are obviously just some medium tanks, but this clip shows that the gun of this tank is very accurate and quite responsive when it comes to these gunfights. One thing I've noticed however is that the heat shells don't seem to be very good, so I'd recommend you use as much standard ammo as possible, for they have 270mm of PAM, very fast velocity, and can also track people, which is absolutely essential as shown in the first couple of rounds. There are loads of guys below us on the G line, so it was time to pick them. And now let's go down and catch that object 430U in the base. He doesn't really show us any weak spots, so I just leave him be and go my way. Until I found a new angle. A huge thing I've noticed playing this tank is that it can keep up with the pace of the battle in these one-sided games, and thanks to the mobility you get to pick up so much late game damage that would otherwise be impossible to do with slower tanks such as the Super Conqueror. And as we finally pick him up, we head out to find the Foch B and put a big shot into his cupola. Almost 7000 damage, pretty decent. As I said in the beginning of the video, these rounds were all recorded well into the marathon and all the games were super duper fast. This is a bad and a good thing at the same time, because I played around 30 games and almost all of them was super fast, and we just had to keep on constantly moving and pushing to get as much damage as possible. But it's also a good thing as it shows you how capable this tank is at moving across the battlefield in different situations. This was my first ever game by the way on the tank, and also was the fastest battle I've ever played on this map. As we're getting pushed from multiple directions, and as we aren't an Object 279 when it comes to taking shots, we have to fall back and wait for our allies to reinforce our positions. Realizing that the ST-1 is completely alone, it was obvious who the next target would be. Oh yeah, and that 410 Alpha can definitely surprise you at times. As the remainder of the enemies are all gathered up on the other side, we head over to the middle to have some shots on them, but before that we meet this lonely Udes. As the army picks up the kill, we get to see one of the most beautiful sights ever, a mouse in the open field. And now you're thinking to yourself, we're gonna pen every single shot, right? Just watch how RNG does me in. We leave the mouse on 1 HP, but don't worry, I have some more juicy content coming up for you. This next game perfectly demonstrates how good this tank is at side-scraping corners. Let me know after this game what you think about the armor model in the comments. We start off by driving to this corner and use our mobility to get there fast, so we can already give that S-Kong a cheeky shot before he arrives to his position. I get happy quickly, but unfortunately the S-Kong is playing with 2 repair kits and completely denies us the kill chance. People were super curious to see what this tank was and even more happy to overpick all the time. You will see that a lot this game. The upper plate might seem strong on paper, but in reality it is only really strong against heat shells. Hype and AP and APCR shells will go through that shovel like there's no tomorrow, and you should be prepared for this mentally as it is quite frustrating. Look at that juicy accuracy though. That shot was absolutely filthy. I see that both the AMX and S-Conk have fired, so I try my luck again peeking this corner. I notice the Bisonte is on the corner, and since he doesn't have that much penetration, I know he's basically a free target, and as he heads back into cover, I find a Löwe instead. I wait in one place doing nothing for so long, I even thought the enemies went away, until suddenly this AMX comes back and catches me with a very lucky timing. This was pretty unlucky as I now became basically a one-shot to anyone, and it doesn't look like we're getting any help from the team, so I had to be really careful with how I peeked. As the other AMX is battering us from the right side, our Type tries crossing and gets picked up by the TP. In hindsight, I should have just went for him and tried to kite the AMX around the block as he had way too much HP, but I misplay and go down quickly. This round was pretty hectic, but nothing can compare to this next one. We are playing on Mountain Pass from the verse side, and we actually get to show this cheeky WZ the nice hospitality of our HE shells. As we are crossing towards the balcony, I notice an opportunity to do loads of damage on the guys in the riverbed, and we go for it. Luckily this BZ pushes like a paid actor, and we get some nice damage onto him. I was just about to drop off and get ready to clear out the riverbed, but this T-30 decides to donate us some more damage. Yeah, I mean, just look at that gun. I am absolutely in love with this. I finally decide it's time to push, and we go for the Löwe, the Charioteer, and the other guys on the bottom. The Object 416 is a very welcome guest over here, and just before we load some juicy HE shells for the Löwe, we get to deal with him first. We go through the ice zero, but we find absolutely nobody. Finally, we come across the Iron Army at the end, and thanks to the tank's good mobility, we are there at the late game to pick up as much damage as possible. Can't do that with a Super Conk. Finally, as we are finishing this game, I would like to talk to you about getting this tank. The tank is extremely expensive and for good reason. You have to spend an enormous amount of resources on it, but this is not going to be like a chieftain. The gun itself behaves a lot better and is more accurate too, but the armor model and the length of the tank doesn't allow for the same kind of gameplay. You will simply not block as much damage. I have to say that the tank has extremely high potential to carry games, and you will have loads of high damage games as well. If you have a lot of resources that you are just hoarding and not really finding anything else to spend them on, then get this tank. If you have to tap into them pretty hard or have to reach deep into your wallet, then this tank isn't for you.